Hey folks, and welcome to TheyMightBeRacing.com. Today we're dealing with another common problem with Ford Explorers, particularly from the generation of this one, which is 2002, which is power windows. And this is true of just about every major car that's made, is that eventually your power window motors, or regulators as they're called, end up dying. Quite frequently they're made with fairly flimsy plastic pieces, or little cables in the case of this particular one, and it's just a matter of they end up disintegrating. Every time you add another motor and another set of moving assemblies to a car, it's just something else to break. The Ford Explorer really isn't any different. You know, these end up giving out after a period of time. This particular car's got about 130,000 miles on it. Now the interesting thing is that the ones that tend to break are the ones that are used the least. So far I've already done the front passenger door, and today I'm doing the rear passenger door. Now, from my driving experience when I owned the car before I gave it to my wife, the only window that ever went up and down was mine, the driver's side window, and that one works just fine. So I don't know if it's a disuse thing or it's just simply a matter of an age thing on these. There's a bit of work in getting to the window regulator. So the first thing you need to do is pop loose the switch for the power window. What it does is it actually comes away from the door, and then you slide it forward and lift it up. When you flip it over, there's an electrical connector to the switch, so you just need to compress that and disconnect it. Once you've got this out of the car, set it aside. Now, there are a couple of very small bolts that hold this in place. One is at the bottom, one is here at the top. They are 7/32 size, so the one at the top is actually hidden behind the door handle that you just removed. The other one is right underneath the bottom of the panel and is very obvious. You want to make sure to get your fingers in there so you can grab this, otherwise you're going to wind up dropping it into the door panel when it comes loose. Now, more or less the rest of what holds this onto the car are Christmas trees type connectors and a lip that goes over the top. So you mainly need to just get in underneath and very carefully get these guys loose. I guess it helps if I actually remove the lower bolt that I mentioned. So what you do is you work your way from the bottom up the sides, getting all of the fasteners. You don't want to force it too hard, because otherwise you'll break stuff. Sometimes they pop loose off the door panel, sometimes due to age they just completely disintegrate and die on you. The good thing is just about every hardware store has them in stock. I routinely go up and buy them at Ace. And then lift it once you've got it loose. And you'll have to pull the door handle and twist a little bit to get the panel out of the way. Once the panel has been removed, you'll see sheet plastic across here. You're going to want to remove, you need to remove this to get in there, but what you want to do is remove it carefully enough that you can put it back after the fact. Also take note of where the window switch wiring comes through. Now, on this particular door, it appears that the speaker overlays the The speaker overlays the plastic panel, so I'm going to have to remove the speaker as well and disconnect some of the other wiring that's down a little bit lower. So we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll get the rest of the door skin off. Now, once you've got the door panel off, you get the plastic protective off, you've removed the speaker, etc., and you've got everything out, you're ready to start diving in. So this is what the window regulator looks like for the rear door of the Ford Explorer from 2002. Front door looks a little bit different, primarily on the riser. Here's your motor, your vertical control arm. Now here's where things start to get fun. This part of the vertical control arm is what connects to the window. Now if you actually go and you take a look inside your panel, you will note that it's connected with a giant rivet. So in their brilliance at Ford, they decided that they would connect this to the window, a part that is destined to break, with a rivet. So what does this mean? Well, it means basically that you're going to need to get some sort of cutting tool in there, like for example a drill, a Dremel, etc., and go through that rivet and release it. And what that'll do is that'll release the window itself from that riser inside. And so to get the whole unit out, you have to do that. And on the front, just for those who may need to do the front, there's two of them accessed in like that. The door layout's a little bit different. So like I said, don't know why Ford did this, but they did. This one looks like it's actually going to be more annoying than the front door because it's actually hidden behind the metal panel here. There doesn't seem to be any sort of easy access to get to it, so I'm going to have to come in at an angle to cut it off. Looks like I'll probably use a cut-off wheel and my Dremel to go through it. Now the good part is that this metal plane right here, or I guess, sorry, yeah, there we go. This metal plane here sits forward of the window itself, so if you're cutting into it with something, you don't have to worry over much because you're cutting into, if you cut past the rivet, because you're cutting into a piece you're going to toss anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and break out my Dremel and a cutting wheel. I'll cut it out, and then once I've got that disconnected, I'll show you how to get the rest of the old unit out and put the new unit in. Hey folks, so at this stage you've managed to burn through the rivet with your tool of choice. I got lucky. I happened to find that I still had a diamond round tip bit for my Dremel, burned through it in a space of a minute or two. The trick is that you focus on the center of the rivet, not the outsides, because it's where the post connects to the head that is what holds it together. So once you get that out of the way, you're good. Now, the assembly is held into the car with 5 nuts coming from posts. One here, those are for the riser bar, and then there are 3 right in here for the actual window motor. So these all come out using a .11mm bit or socket. So you go ahead and you remove all 5, and then we start the really fun part, which if the rivet wasn't fun enough, this will be. The trick is to get everything out through the speaker hole. So since my system was more or less destroyed, disintegrated as the case may be, this is actually fairly simple to remove. You also have to remember to disconnect the fan motor wiring clip, and then working on the fan motor earlier. The window motor wiring, and then feed what's left of it out. There we go. See, in the case of this one, it appears that it suffered, there, that plastic clip is what died. So, for the want of a cheap plastic clip, we have to spend a couple $100s for a new regulator to put in there. Now that that's out, I'm going to feed this guy in. Now, the thing you have to remember is that your unit alignment looks like that inside. So you want to try to feed it in such a fashion that will allow you to get close to that alignment. Then remember, when working inside of door panels, to always be careful, because the metal on the interior is not necessarily what one would always call finished, and it's very easy to cut yourself. Now, so once you've got it in, you'll have to wiggle it around a little bit. There's a bunch of other wiring and stuff in here that makes things kind of fun. And just making it as injured as possible to rotate the entire motor unit inside. So, step number one is to line up the motor unit with the appropriate holes, and then, depending on your setup, you may need to put a nut or two on here to keep it from jumping. Once you've got that lined up, you want to get your riser in place. And some of the fun that you may run into is interference from the window, so just be careful. Don't want to scratch or damage anything. Get it pressed into place. A couple of nuts on this. And then the next step is to tighten this all down. Hey folks, so what I did is I went through and I tightened up all 5 of the bolts, and I cheated a little bit while off camera. Rather than putting a rivet back in place, which is a dumb thing to do, what we've done here is we've replaced it with a nut bolt lock washer combination, and as well we put red Loctite on it. I did that while I was off camera. So at this stage, the whole assembly is put back together again. I've reconnected the negative battery terminal, put the ignition on enough that we should be able to test out the window. Let me make sure I'm child-proofed it. Yes, I did child-proof it. So what you want to do is you want to check the range of motion. You still have tape on the windows like me, tear it off. All the way up. All the way down. So if everything's working correctly, at this stage of the game, what you can do is go ahead and disconnect the switch again, turn everything off, disconnect your negative battery cable, put the plastic sheathing back on, make sure to feed everything through in the correct location. You got this here, as well as, that's the battery connector, so yeah, just that there. And you got to pull this through so it lays behind. Put the plastic sheathing on, put the door on. Now the trick to the door is to set it up top first and press it in below. So it's the exact opposite of how we removed it. And then put the switch cover back into place. Once you've got that done, test your window again. Everything should be good to go.